Level 100. Some would say it's the pinnacle of power for a Pokemon. While this technically isn't true due to things like natures and IVs, nothing was cooler as a kid than finally getting my favorite Mons to that max level. Because back in the day, getting to level 100 was actually hard. EXP candies didn't exist, and at most you'd get like 5 rare candies a save file, which meant the rest had to be done through cold, hard grinding. Or just going through the Elite Four over and over. This makes sense though. After all, it'd be pretty boring if you could just max out your Pokemon's level right out of the gate and sweep through the whole game. But what if that were reversed? What if you, the player, had regular level encounters, but every trainer had only level 100s? Well, as somebody who spent 20 hours they'll never get back attempting such a feat in Pokemon FireRed, I can say it definitely wasn't boring. Instead, it was like traveling the 9 circles of hell, only to discover there was a secret 10th circle that Dante must have forgotten to put in his book. But one person's torment is another person's entertainment. So come along as I tell you the story of my journey through Pokemon FireRed, but every trainer has level 100 Pokemon. But first, some housekeeping. For this challenge, I created a mod that makes every trainer-owned Pokemon in the game level 100. What I didn't touch was the movesets of these Pokemon. So depending on the battle, some Pokemon will have their 4 most recent moves as of level 100, and others with custom movesets will have the same moves as the vanilla game. To make this even more challenging, I added a couple extra rules. I'm not allowed to gain experience from wild Pokemon, since it would trivialize the entire challenge if I could just train my Pokemon to level 100 off of level 3 Rattata. And if I lose a battle, I have to reset to my last save, because by beating the first Pokemon on a trainer's team, and then whiting out, I would still have the EXP gained from that first Pokemon, which could be used to grind and also trivialize the challenge. Last thing, if you like watching man-children torture themselves in video games for your amusement, you've come to the right place. I'm constantly working on ridiculous challenges, so you should subscribe and like the video to make sure you don't miss out. The run had barely begun, but I already had a critical decision to make. Which starter would carry me through? Unlike a normal playthrough where one starter choice is completely opinion-based, there is an objectively correct starter choice for this challenge. I need the one who can do the most passive damage. In Generation 3, Squirtle has no way to do passive damage. Charmander can do passive damage by burning its opponent, but only has a slim chance to do so with moves like Ember and Flamethrower. Meanwhile, Bulbasaur is a passive damage machine. At level 7, it learns Leech Seed, and at level 13, it learns Poison Powder. With these moves stacked together, a weak little Leaf Frog can bring down a level 100 Titan in just a few turns. So I grabbed my Bulbasaur, and since it was an uncommon female starter, I decided to name her after my cat Clementine, who's also a rare female. If you didn't know, orange tabby cats are predominantly male. I was then thrust into a battle against a level 100 Charmander. Thankfully, I didn't need to win because if I did, this challenge would be impossible. After getting some Pokeballs from Professor Oak, I set out to catch 5 level 5 Pidgey. Starting at level 5, Wild Pidgey will have the move Sand Attack, which lowers the accuracy of an opponent Pokemon. This is essential to getting through the early battles in this challenge, but for some reason I could only find 2 level 5 Pidgeys. On Route 1, Pidgey is a 50% encounter and can appear from levels 2 to 5, which should be a 25% chance of getting the level I want. This means I have a hypothetical 13% chance of finding a level 5 Pidgey. So it's not the most common, but it's weird I was only able to find 2. Afterwards, I headed to Vermilion Forest and began searching for the first trainer I could feasibly take down. My first thought was to challenge Bugcatcher Charlie, who has 2 Metapods and a Caterpie. The only move his Metapods have is Harden, so it shouldn't be able to touch me, right? Well, at my low level, any of my damaging moves are at most doing 1 hit point per attack. Harden can be used 40 times, and once Metapod runs out of PP, it begins using Struggle, which takes out any of my Pokemon in just 1 shot. Even if I set up 6 Sand Attacks, there was absolutely no way I could take out Metapod in 40 turns, or dodge Struggle enough to eventually take out all 3 of Charlie's Pokemon. So I went back to the drawing board. I eventually realized that the one trainer I could feasibly defeat was the only trainer that you need to defeat to progress through the Viridian Forest, Bugcatcher Sammy. Sammy only has 1 Pokemon, a Weedle. At level 100, Weedle only knows Poison Sting and String Shot, and since Sammy has dumb early game trainer AI, he selects between the 2 randomly. If I can get lucky and have Weedle start with String Shot, then set up 6 Sand Attacks, I could potentially get through this fight. But I needed some help. From Viridian Forest, I caught a Pikachu named Tulip, as well as 2 additional Pikachu that would be useful later. Then on Route 22, I caught 3 Spearow, who all knew Peck. While neutral moves currently did 1 hit point per attack, super effective Pecks do 2 hit points per attack. I know this doesn't sound like a lot, but it literally doubled my damage output and I needed all the help I could get. After dozens of attempts, I was just a few hits shy of winning several times. I even won one of the attempts, but since Clementine fainted and didn't get any EXP, I reset since she desperately needed it. Finally, after 70 resets, this happened. Come on, you got this. Okay. Please. Yes! 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 Let's fucking go! Woo! Oh my god! So for defeating a level 100 with a level 5, you would probably think this would rocket me to a super high level, right? Well, for defeating this Weedle, Clementine gained 1,113 EXP, which shot her all the way up to level 12. On the plus side, she learned Leech Seed, which makes taking out the rest of the bug catchers way easier. With Sand Attacks and Leech Seed, I was able to beat Charlie in only 2 attempts, which earned Clementine Sleep Powder, Poison Powder, and allowed her to evolve into Ivysaur. I swept through the rest of the trainers in the forest, getting Clementine to level 24 and getting Tulip to level 10, which taught her Thunder Wave. Feeling more confident, I tried fighting Brock, only to realize I was nowhere near ready. His Geodude outsped and one-shot my entire team with Tackle, and even though Tackle only has 95% accuracy in Generation 3, you know that number means nothing to the AI. Instead, I took on Brock's gym trainer camper Liam. After about 20 attempts, I managed to take him down, which allowed Boydie 2 the Pidgey to evolve into Pidgeotto. Now if I could paralyze Brock's Geodude, Boydie could outspeed and start setting up a Sand Attack. And while Geodude is immune to Thunder Waves from Tulip, it can be paralyzed if it makes contact with her and gets paralyzed through static. I tried several attempts with just Tulip, only to realize I could have an even better chance to paralyze if I brought multiple Pikachu into the fold. So I added the 2 additional Pikachu to my party, which gave me 3 30% chances to paralyze right off the bat. After setting up Sand Attack, I'd switch to Clementine and use Leech Seed and Razor Leaf to whittle away until it went down. Then I'd have to get lucky against Onix, which thankfully has a pitiful special defense stat that Clementine could exploit. Despite having a more concrete plan, I still needed an insane amount of luck to win this fight, which unfortunately is a common theme throughout this playthrough. It took me nearly 100 attempts and almost an hour, but finally I got the luck I needed. That was close. That was very close. Indeed, indeed. See, paralysis can be helpful on Onix, but I feel like sleep is better. Okay, if you can miss and I can hit at least one Sand Attack, that'd be awesome. Okay, no. Yes! 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 Let's f***ing go! Holy f***! Yeah! With the first badge finally in hand, I headed east towards Mount Moon. Along the way, I avoided as many trainers as possible so I could save as much EXP for the 2 new team members I was about to catch. In the Pokemon Center outside of Mount Moon, I purchased Kaya the Magikarp, and inside of Mount Moon, I picked up Alvita the Geodude. I took the new recruits back through Route 3 and switch trained them with Clementine. It took a few resets to defeat them all, but other than that, it wasn't too bad. Mount Moon was a different story. Most of the regular trainers throughout the cave were manageable, but the rocket grunts were a huge pain. Their Sandshrews, Zubats, and Rattatas all had moves that could take out my Pokemon super quickly and, much like Brock, required an insane amount of luck to beat. So I decided to avoid them at first and focus on the scrub trainers. After defeating a bug catcher early in the cave, Clementine evolved into Venusaur, which means I could now more reliably outspeed and not go down in one hit to stage 1 Pokemon even at level 100. I also found a rare candy, which I used to evolve Kaya into Gyarados. Man, with a Venusaur leading the way, backed by a Gyarados, my team was looking fierce. Surely nothing could stand in my way now. Even though I was starting to build up a true team, my main strategy for 99% of battles was to start with Clementine, set up with Leech Seed and either Sleep Powder or Poison Powder, and chip away until it went down. But last Miriam has both Oddish and Bellsprout. Both are grass and poison types, meaning they're unaffected by Leech Seed and can't be poisoned. Thankfully, Miriam isn't a required trainer, but this showed me I needed to find a better way to deal with grass types ASAP. Shortly after, I found a Rocket Grunt I could actually take on. The Grunt in the room with the Thief TM had a Zubat and Ekans. With a combination of Leech Seed from Clementine and Rock Throw from Alvida, I was slowly able to chip away at Zubat's HP until it went down. When it came down to Ekans, it started spamming Stockpile, which allowed me to get off a weak Thunder Shock from one of my backup Pikachu and paralyze it. From there, I swapped through my remaining Pokemon to do as much damage as possible before I eventually took it out with Tulip's Thunder Shocks. It felt good to finally take down a Team Rocket Grunt, even if I only had one Pokemon remaining by the end of the battle. From here, I slowly but surely took out the remaining trainers in Mount Moon, excluding the Titan known as Last Miriam, of course. While the rest only required a little luck to beat, the final Rocket Grunt was a whole other beast. Despite only having Rattata and Zubat, these two are speed demons with powerful stab moves like Hyper Fang and Air Cutter, which blast through even Alvida's decent defense stat. On my winning attempt, I took out the Rat with a combination of Poison Powder and Leech Seed from Clementine. When it came to the Bat, I got off a Leech Seed and managed to finally put Zubat down with a few Rock Throws from Alvida. This also got her to level 25, which evolved her into Graveler. And using my real-life Game Boy Advance link cable, I evolved her once again into Golem. With that, there was only one trial before we could exit Mount Moon. Super Nerd Miguel. With his keen intellect and powerful Pokemon, I knew this would prove to be my toughest challenge yet. Okay, that's fine. Memento all you like. Coughing should have Explosion at this level. It has Destiny Bond, Memento, Explosion. So it has a 50% chance to just kill itself. Wow, Explosion killed me. Nice, got Gyarados a level. Yeah, two of his Pokemon just KO'd themselves, and the last one went down with no problems. No complaints here. Now in Cerulean, I realized I was trapped between a rock and a hard place. I could either take on the rival fight in the north part of the city, which gets me access to Nugget Bridge, or take on Misty, which at this point doesn't really get me anything. I bounced back and forth between the two fights to see if I could notice any exploitable flaws, and quickly realized Misty's fight was definitely cheesable. Her Staryu was easy enough to take out, but her Starmie was the real problem. Water Pulse could rip through any of my Pokemon, even the ones that resist Water-type moves like Clementine and Kaya. She also had access to Swift, which could also one-shot most of my team. But this is the flaw I could take advantage of. In Generation 3, whether a move is physical or special is determined by what type it is. Since all normal type moves are physical, I could lower Starmie's attack to the point where I could take more than one hit. Kaya had the ability Intimidate, and thankfully on Route 4, I also caught a couple of Ekans that also had Intimidate. So all I need to do is swap between my various snakes to lower Starmie's attack, which would hopefully give Clementine enough time to set up Leech Seed. This ended up not being really necessary since Starmie mainly went for Water Pulses no matter what. So after 2 Intimidates for my Ekans and setting up with Leech Seed, I managed to stall out Starmie with a few Super Potions, and eventually it went down and earned me the Cascade Badge. The Nugget Bridge rival fight was not as exploitable. His Pidgeotto had Wing Attack, which could nearly one-shot even Alvida. Charmander could one-shot every member of my team with Slash and Flamethrower, Rattata is fast and can hit hard with Hyper Fang, and Abra, it still just knows Teleport. It took me nearly the entire stream and all the luck I can muster to get through this fight, and hopefully showing you the winning attempt will explain why. Against Pidgeotto, I swapped between Alvida and Kaya to keep getting attack drops from Intimidate, all the while keeping my Pokemon topped off with Super Potions. After using all of my Rock Throw PP, I finally managed to take down Pidgeotto, which brought out Charmander. I sent out Pikachu and used the turn to heal Alvida. Charmander took it out with Slash and thankfully was paralyzed from Static. So I swapped to Clementine, who went down to a single ember, but thankfully was able to set up Leech Seed first. As Leech Seed ticked away at the lizard, I used my only revive and a super potion to get Clementine back to almost full HP. With a magnitude 9 from Alvita and Leech Seed damage, Charmander fell to super low HP. Not wanting Alvita to go down, I swapped to Tulip, but Charmander couldn't move due to paralysis and fainted from Leech Seed damage. From here, the rest of the fight was pretty easy. Abra went down to Leech Seed and Poison Powder, and Rattata was taken out with my 3 remaining Pokemon. So I was finally able to move on to Nugget Bridge, which hopefully shouldn't be too bad. Motherfuck. The first trainer was a bug catcher, which I took out on one try, but trainer number 2 is Lass Alley. Her first Pokemon is just a Pidgey, but her second and third Pokemon are Oddish and Bellsprout, which, as I mentioned before, are immune to my main strategy of setting up Leech Seed and Poison Powder. I tried a couple of times to take her on, but after spending nearly 2 hours trying to beat my rival, I was feeling pretty burnt out and decided to just end the stream for the night. The next stream, I went right back into the fray and ended up getting lucky. After taking out Allie's Pidgey, I swapped between Clementine and Boydie 2, continuously putting the Onion back to sleep, and eventually getting it down to minimum accuracy with Sand Attack. Then I switched to Kaya and began spamming Dragon Rage. Thanks to sleep turns and Oddish missing all of its attacks, my Gyarados was eventually able to take it down. I tried to do the same thing against Bellsprout, but after setting up one Sand Attack, Bellsprout O-code Clementine with Slam. Kaya managed to get Bellsprout below half HP before going down to Razor Leaf, and Alvita finished the job with a series of weak magnitudes while Bellsprout couldn't move from paralysis. The rest of the bridge trainers were pretty easy, and I moved on to Route 25 where I caught Eepee the Abra. Not only is Alakazam a fantastic and fast special attacker, but I was also hopeful that Eepee here could deal with any future grass and poison obstacles. After switch training her through a couple of battles, Eepee evolved into Kadabra, and through another real trade with my real Game Boy Advance link cable, she also evolved into Alakazam. At the end of Route 25, I encountered yet another required trainer with not one, but 2 Oddish! After 20 attempts, I finally took down the stupid onions with status conditions, Dragon Rages, and Magnitudes. I grabbed the SSN ticket from Bill and moved on to Vermilion City. Once I reached the seaside town, I was once again staring down the barrel of my rival's gun. The only way to progress the story was to beat the SSN rival fight, who essentially had the same team from Nugget Bridge except all of his Pokemon had evolved. Needless to say, I wasn't a match for him, so I decided to take out the trainers on the surrounding routes before committing to the fight. In my many attempts at taking him on, I actually noticed an odd AI quirk. While Gen 3 AI typically hates switching out mid-battle, 9 times out of 10 if I had Clementine out, put Raticate to sleep, set up Leech Seed, and then began attacking with Razor Leaf, my rival would switch to Charmeleon. But if I let Raticate go down to Leech Seed without doing direct damage, my rival would go for Kadabra instead. After seeing this a dozen or so times, in my final attempt I was able to use this to my advantage. In my winning battle, I started with an Intimidate drop from Kaya and swapped into Alvita to start doing damage against Pidgeotto. At one point, I had to switch back to Kaya after a handful of Feather Dances, which meant she went down so Alvita could get the KO. Raticate came in, so I sent in Clementine to set up Sleep Powder and Leech Seed. After using Razor Leaf once, I knew from past experience my rival would swap to Charmeleon. Thankfully, I was right and I was able to put it to sleep and set up Leech Seed. I sent out Alvita and nearly took out Charmeleon with a few Rock Tombs, but it eventually woke up and took out my Golem with Flamethrower. I sent out Tulip to stall out Leech Seed turns and a Slash O-code her but also paralyzed Charmeleon. So the next turn, all Charmeleon could do was go down to Leech Seed damage. Last up was Kadabra, but thankfully it kept going for Future Sight instead of a direct damaging move, so Clementine was able to set up Leech Seed and chip away with Razor Leaf while Alvita and my second Pikachu took the hits from Future Sight. My rival's nearly dead and a Sleep Raticate came out, but it went down to another Razor Leaf which won me the battle. Man, that felt good. I can't wait to get off this boat. Let me stop off in the healing room before oh dear. Yeah, I forgot to save after the battle and accidentally walked into the wrong room, ending up in a trainer battle. And with Clementine as my only remaining Pokemon, I was pretty sure I'd have to reset and do the rival fight again. Thankfully, with a little luck and a lot of Super Potions, I was able to set up Leech Seeds and take out my opponent's Nidorans. Oh yeah, that's something I should address. You might notice I have quite a few Super Potions for this point in the game. This is due to how Generation 3 calculates money given from trainer battles. Each trainer battle doesn't have a specific amount of money it gives the player. Instead, it seems like the amount of money given is determined by the number of Pokemon and the level of those Pokemon. And since every trainer only has level 100s, even basic trainer battles were giving me a fair bit of money. I didn't understand how this worked when I made the mod, so the bonus money was completely unintentional. But I figured it was fair for the amount of hell I was going through in this challenge. But what wasn't hell was the battle against Lieutenant Surge. I'm not even going to write this into the script, just watch it. Okay, I don't want to jinx myself, but I think Surge might be kind of easy. Oh, one shot? Okay, now to help me out a little bit. Oh, come on. I keep missing. Oh, we got him! Dude, that was so easy! Holy crap! Wow, that was super easy. You know, my team is pretty strong at this point. Surely the rest of this game shouldn't be that bad. Forget Lieutenant Surge. Picnic or Alicia is the real third gym leader. At this point, my team could handle 1, maybe 2 grass and poison types per team. But Alicia had 4. 2 Oddish and 2 Bellsprout. And to make matters worse, she's positioned right at the entrance of Route 9, so I couldn't pass until I found a way to beat her. After several attempts, I knew my current team couldn't handle these absolute monsters, so I needed a plan. I went through my party and saw that if EP could boost her special attack enough, I could potentially outspeed and sweep Alicia's whole team. But the only stat boosting move she could learn is Calm Mind at level 33, and she was at level 27. So I went back through all routes available to me and took out any and all trainers I hadn't already fought. Thankfully, I earned just enough experience to get her to level 31, and with 2 rare candies, I bumped her up to level 33 and she learned Calm Mind. From here, say it with me folks, I just needed some luck. I'd start with Clementine and use Sleep Powder. Then I'd send out Boydie to spam sand attacks as much as possible. Then go back to Clem to refresh sleep turns. After all that, I needed Oddish to stay asleep, miss, or try to use Moonlight for 3 to 4 turns while EP set up Calm Mind. This is where most of the attempts failed. After an hour of preparing for and attempting this fight, I finally managed to set up 3 Calm Minds and take out Oddish in 2 turns. Alicia's first Bellsprout went down to a single Psybeam, and Oddish number 2 came out. Since this Oddish didn't have any accuracy drops, I needed it to go for Moonlight or miss a Sleep Powder in order to clutch the victory. Thankfully, it did go for Moonlight, which meant EP could take it out with 2 Psybeams, which meant I had vanquished one of my greatest foes yet and was able to move on to Rock Tunnel. Despite how Rock Tunnel could be on a typical playthrough, it only took me about 25 minutes to get through the whole thing. I attribute this to my numerous playthroughs of this game and actually going out of my way to get Flash so I wasn't running around like a moron. I decided to head straight to Celadon since my only option in Lavender Town was to fight my rival again. And since our last meeting on the SSN, he swapped his dead rat with a water demon and also added some eggs to the team. On the way to Celadon, I stopped by some grass on Route 8 and picked up Grimace the Growlithe. My problem with grass types was about to come to a head with Erica, so I figured a Growlithe would be my best option to mow her team down. Once in Celadon, I spent oodles of my money on Game Corner coins so I could pick up a Flamethrower TM and a Charcoal for Grimace. Otherwise, he'd have to reach level 49 to learn it naturally, so this large monetary investment is worth it in my opinion. I ran through the trainers on Route 8, all the while switch training Grimace. Once he reached level 31, I used a Firestone to evolve him into Arcanine. I was hoping this would give him enough power to take on Erica's gym trainers, but it was clear he wasn't quite strong enough yet. So instead, I redirected to the Rocket Hideout to get him a few more levels. I'd come a long way since Mount Moon, so the grunts this time around were a pushover, and I quickly made my way to Giovanni. Even at level 100, and Onyx is still an Onyx. Rhyhorn gave me some trouble, but with a revive, I managed to bring Clementine back from the dead and take it out with a critical hit Razor Leaf. Kangaskhan was pretty tough. This beefy mama could tank hits and hit back twice as hard. She managed to take out most of my team without taking much damage herself. Thankfully, I managed to set up Leech Seed, which eventually took out Kangaskhan after I spammed a bunch of healing items to keep my team afloat. Feeling like I could conquer the world, I marched into Pokemon Tower to take on my rival, and got completely destroyed. So I decided to take on Erica's gym trainers instead. Thankfully, my team was way better equipped to take on grass poison types now, but there was still no way in hell I'd be able to take on Erica at this point. Despite having a type advantage in Grimace, status effects and self-healing moves from Erica made it near impossible to get past her gym. So I decided to take out some more trainers in the surrounding area to get some EXP and called it a night. The next stream, I knew that my best course of action would be to take out my rival since defeating him opens up more of the map and I could always return to defeat Erica later. Like the previous 2 rival fights, I basically had to slam my head into the wall over and over again in order to find my way through. I really thought by this point these fights would be getting easier, but clearly that wasn't the case. In my winning attempt, Pidgeotto went down to a few rock slides and Execute came out. Clementine swapped in to put the eggs to sleep so Grimace couldn't be paralyzed from Stun Spore. After surviving a flamethrower, Execute was swapped out for Gyarados, who had a Hydro Pump ready for me. So Clementine came in to take the hit, which means Gyarados was about to unleash a Hyper Beam. So Kaya went down to get me a free switch to Clementine so I could set up Leech Seed on Gyarados' recharge turn. After a few swaps involving some of my Pokemon going down and being revived, Clementine put Gyarados to sleep. This allowed me to heal up my team while Gyarados slowly fell to Leech Seed. Before going down, it woke up and knocked Clementine down to 2 HP with a Hyper Beam, so when Kadabra came out, I swapped Eepee to take a hit while I healed up my starter. With Clementine out against Kadabra, the AI coin flips between Psychic and Future Sight. If it goes for Future Sight, this gives Clementine a free turn to set up Sleep and Leech Seed, but if it goes for Psychic, Clementine goes down, which happened in this attempt. So I let Kaya go down as well to heal Clementine, hoping the second time around I'd get lucky, and I did. I spent a few turns getting my fallen teammates revived, but eventually Kadabra woke up and kept spamming Future Sight. At first. Before Kadabra could go down to Leech Seed, it managed to take out half my team, which I had just finished reviving. Execute returned, so Clementine immediately put it back to sleep so I could revive my team again. Eventually, I got Grimace back in and took out Execute with Flamethrower. Charmeleon was out last, which is why I brought Tulip back from the box. I needed to once again paralyze Charmeleon with Tulip's static ability. This took a few tries and several revives, but I finally paralyzed my rival starter. Clementine came out, set up Leech Seed, and immediately went down to Flamethrower. A critical hit Earthquake from Alvida knocked Charmeleon down to super low HP, but she also went down to Flamethrower. Thankfully, it had low enough HP to go down to Leech Seed on the next turn, winning me this long-fought battle. The rest of the Pokemon Tower was a breeze. Most of the trainers were easily avoided, but the mandatory ones were pushovers. Since all Ghost-type moves are physical in Generation 3, and the Ghastly line have minuscule physical attack stats, the Channelers were prey for my team, and I moved on to the top of the tower, where a different challenge awaited me. When I made this mod, I made every trainer-owned Pokemon level 100. What I didn't account for was static Pokemon, which I didn't really need to since all these Pokemon could either be avoided or caught. Except for one, Marowak. The Marowak guarding Pokemon Tower is level 30, meaning if I defeat her and gain experience, I'm technically failing the challenge. So on the fly, I updated Marowak's level in the code, exported a new ROM, hopped into the fight, and it's still level 30. I'm not really sure why this is. The only thing I can think of is that maybe this encounter is coded differently because of the Silph Scope, so I decided to just call a mulligan and KO Marowak to progress. If it's any consolation, I used Kaya to defeat it, and she won't be used much longer anyway. The remaining Rocket Grunts were easy to defeat, so I mopped them up and made my way back to Cerulean with the Poke-Flute in hand. On the outskirts of Cycling Road, I encountered the static Snorlax, caught him, and named him Snacky. I carefully made my way through the Cycling Road so I could grab the Surf HM from the Safari Zone, and decided to take on Koga's gym while I was down there. Eepee nearly one-shot Coughing before going down to a Sludge, so Grimace came in for the revenge KO. Alvida came in to take on Muck, and with a series of Earthquakes, I burned through Koga's Hyper Potions, but she went down as well. So I brought in Clementine to set up Leech Seed, and after going down, Grimace came back in for another revenge kill. After being revived, Alvida knocked Coughing number 2 down to super low HP before being KO'd, so Grimace had to come in again to take out Coughing. With some healing and careful switching, I chipped away at Weezing's health and eventually brought an end to one of the easiest fights of the game so far. But I knew the remaining fights left in this game were going to be a hurdle, so I once again needed some extra firepower to make it through. So before progressing the story, I made a quick detour to the power plant to pick up a powerful new team member, Zapdos. Between its high speed stat, static ability, and high offensive stats, I felt that this spiky bird would be exactly what I need to make the rest of this run a cakewalk. Which wasn't really the case, but hey, a guy can dream. So with DeWalt on the team, I returned to Erica's gym, ready to claim my 5th badge. Grimace did a good chunk of damage before going down, which allowed DeWalt to come in and clean up with a few drill pecks. When Tangela came in, Clementine sponged some hits while I revived Grimace so he could come back out and take out the pile of spaghetti with 2 flamethrowers. As I faced down Vileplume, I could feel that this was the culmination of every monstrous Oddish I had faced thus far. Grimace got off a flamethrower before going down. DeWalt paralyzed Vileplume with Thunder Wave and was paralyzed back from Stun Spore. Before going down to Sludge, DeWalt got off a couple of Drill Pecks, which brought Vileplume down to red HP. Thankfully, Eevee was able to finish off Vileplume, officially putting an end to my Oddish-themed nightmare. Next on my hit list is the Silph Co. Despite being able to head straight to the top and take on my rival, I decided to battle a majority of the grunts in the building to make sure I get as much EXP as possible. This ended up paying off since it took me a record-breaking 2 attempts to take down my rival. Despite my rival now having fully evolved Pidgeot and Charizard, I pretty much used the same strategy as I did before to beat him. with the added bonus of being able to paralyze this Charizard directly with DeWalt instead of crossing my fingers and hoping for paralysis with Tammy. With the third to last rival fight behind me, I grabbed the free Lapras and immediately added her to the team over Kaya. While she was integral to some early game fights, Lucy outclasses her in pretty much every way due to this being before the physical special split. I spent the next hour taking out the remaining Rocket Grunts and a decent amount of trainers on Route 15 to get Lucy ready for the second Giovanni fight. And while this fight did give me some trouble, I honestly barely remember this because I was too busy discussing Dragon Ball with chat. You know what character, though, I hate from Dragon Ball? And I could legitimately go on for hours about how much I hate him? Kami. Kami is the worst character in all of Dragon Ball. He literally spits out the embodiment of evil from his body. And then rather than contain it or seal it away or something, he lets it massacre a huge part of the Earth's population. And then, like 200 years later, Piccolo comes back and he still doesn't do anything. And then when he tells Goku, like, oh, you have to fight Piccolo in 3 years. We're going to train you to fight Piccolo in 3 years. When Piccolo was a baby, Kami could have just gone down the Earth and baby Hitlered him and he would have been done. You would have had to worry about Piccolo coming back. Anyway, Giovanni's Mon went down fast, and those that didn't were stalled out with Leech Seed and healing items. Just like 80% of fights in this run. Is this video boring? Now that Pokemon's Tony Soprano was sent packing, I made my way to Cinnabar Island with the intent to quickly beat Blaine so I could focus on planning for the fight against Sabrina. But I couldn't even get past his first two Pokemon. Most of my team was demolished by Fire Blast, and the ones left standing couldn't do enough damage in return to win the fight. With my only other option at this point being Sabrina, whose Glass Cannon level 100 Alakazam was looking more like a Glass Nuke, my options weren't looking good. Was this it? Was this the end of the run? Had the previous 14.5 hours been for nothing? The answer to these questions might have been yes, if it weren't for my late game ringer Snacky the Snorlax! With a massive HP and special defense stat, and a pretty decent attack stat to boot, this cuddly critter is the final piece the team has been sorely lacking. And in terms of Snorlaxes, Snacky's the cream of the crop. A careful nature increases his already great special defense while lowering his useless special attack. I even caught the second Snorlax on Route 12 just in case it had better stats, but Snacky outclassed this inferior Lax in every way possible. While this did mean I had to box Eepee, I felt it was worth it to give my team what it needed to finish the run. I started day 9 of this challenge getting Snacky's level on par with the rest of my team by taking him through the remaining trainers I had skipped previously. Snacky then blew through Sabrina's gym trainers almost single-handedly thanks to the Shadow Ball TM I got for him at the game corner. But even with my new ace in the hole, Sabrina was still proving to be difficult. It took 22 resets and a lot of trial and error, but eventually I brought down Saffron's leader. Against her lead Kadabra, Snacky used Yawn while she went for Future Sight. A critical hit Shadow Ball brought Kadabra into healing range, so the next turn it healed with a Hyper Potion while Snacky went for Body Slam. Future Sight hit and did massive damage while Kadabra snoozed. This gave me a free turn to hit with Shadow Ball. DeWalt came in to take on Mrs. Mime. She immediately went for Calm Mind, which let me fire off a critical hit Thunderbolt for about 40% HP. The combination of Kadabra's Future Sight and Psybeam took out DeWalt, so I swapped into Snacky. Another Psybeam brought him to 6 HP, which let me take advantage of Snacky's raw sexual energy and use Attract. This allowed me to heal for free since Mrs. Mime was too damn horny to attack. Next turn, I set up a Yawn, but after, a high roll Psybeam one-shot Snacky. Alvida came out while she fell asleep, and a handful of Earthquakes burned another one of Sabrina's Hyper Potions, and brought Mrs. Mime to a sliver of HP. An Extreme Speed from Grimace took down the Mime, and Venomoth came out. My dog and the Moth traded blows until Grimace went down. With Lucy at bat, I revived and healed Snacky so I could attract and put Venomoth to sleep. While Venomoth slept, I managed to revive and heal my entire team without taking any damage. A few body slams pancaked the Moth, which meant it was time to deal with Alakazam. DeWalt went down to a Psychic so I could heal Snacky to full and bring him back out, only to be one-shot from a single Psychic. A few turns later, I brought a revived Snacky back out, only to again be one-shot. So I brought in Lucy, and on a lucky turn where Alakazam went for Future Sight, I set up Perish Song, which put Alakazam on a 3-turn timer. And because this 5-head Pokemon kept spamming Future Sight, the next 3 turns passed in a flash and I emerged victorious. Now with 6 badges, I returned to Cinnabar Island to take revenge on Blaine's dumb horses. It took a few tries, but I eventually won the War of Attrition and grabbed my 7th badge. I'd go into more detail, but this video is long enough and I can only come up with so many ways to say I stalled out his team with healing items. But if you want to see the full fight, might I recommend checking out the VOD of the stream? Also seems like a good time to mention that I stream all my challenges live on YouTube. So if you want to see what's coming next before it's made into a video, you should subscribe. Shameless plug aside, it's now time for the final gym fight against Giovanni. Giovanni's 2 Rhyhorns went down to 1 Surf apiece. Clementine tanked an Earthquake from Nidoking and set up a Leech Seed. DeWalt came in to avoid an Earthquake so it could heal Clementine to full. DeWalt got off a few Drill Pecks to bring Nidoqueen into the yellow before going down. Alvida nearly won with Earthquake, but Nidoqueen was healed to full and fired back with a critical hit Earthquake for the one-shot. Giovanni healed again, but a Flamethrower from Grimace burned Nidoqueen, which meant an Earthquake wasn't able to take out my dog, so an Extreme Speed brought her down. Dugtrio took a lot of healing and switching, but eventually I brought out DeWalt to take Reduced Slashes and to avoid any ground-type moves while I healed Clementine so she could come in and KO Dugtrio with 2 Razor Leaves. Last up was Nidoking, but with Leech Seed and heal stalling, Giovanni's ace eventually fell. I promise I'm doing my best to make this sound interesting. With Kanto's gym leaders toppled, only 1 challenge was left. When I first arrived at the Indigo Plateau, I was at 16 hours and 9 minutes on the timer. So at what point on the timer do you think I finally beat the champion? 16 and a half hours? 17 hours? Try 19 hours and 35 minutes. This was by far the most frustrating part of the challenge. The worst part was the middle trainers, Koga and Agatha, didn't pose a threat and never beat me during this challenge. Lance and the champion were both strong and ended my run at least once, but with a little planning were manageable. The real killer of this Elite Four was Lorelei. Her team can take hits, take names, and have a plethora of annoying status moves at their disposal. And Lorelei aside, there was a huge problem with the Elite Four. If I lost at any point, I would have to reset to my last save. So if I saved after entering Lorelei's room, I risked soft-locking myself and ending the run. To avoid this, and to add an additional challenge, I decided I need to make it through all 5 trainers in one go. If I lost at any point, it was back to the beginning. And yes, I did make it all the way to the champion at one point and lost, which sucked. But after hours of planning and attempting it over and over, I eventually got this run. Welcome on in to what is hopefully the finale of the Pokemon FireRed level 100 challenge. Will I kill Darkseid? No! Which, weirdly enough, doesn't have an attacking move, I'm pretty sure. Okay, Leech Seed. No! Damn you! Thunderbolt! Yes. Okay. Chesto heals. I Fire Blast. Ooh, Lovely Kiss miss. And I Extreme Speed. Ooh, that's so close. I'm gonna Full Restore and Hope. Ooh, let's go! Alright, Bruno. Just Hitmonchan. I go Clementine. I miss a Leech Seed, of course. I Leech Seed, and then I Toxic. Nice. Grimace to get the Intimidate. Okay. Ooh, I survived one. Okay, that's Bruno. Get nice and double teamed up. Yes! Okay. Thunderbolt. Ooh, nice crit! Let's go! Oh, another crit! Let's go, baby! Alright, Lancy Pants. Nice. Come on. No! Come on. Yes! Alright, alright. Now here is Dragonite. Body Slam. No! Wait a minute. Extreme Speed. No! I'm using up so many of my revives. Yeah! Let's go! Okay, let's go. Oh, I want this challenge to end! Okay, I figured there was a switch there. Okay, Mystic Water. Oh my god. Okay. Come on. Oh, you dickhead. Okay. Okay. No, a crit! It was a crit! No. Okay. Now I leave seed. Alright, it's seeded. It is on a timer. Okay. Nice. Alright, here's Charizard. Oh my god, the miss. Come on, dude. Alvita. Yes! I did it! I did it! Let's fucking go! Woo! Yeah, baby! So after nearly 20 hours and a whopping 849 resets, I finally defeated Pokemon FireRed, where every trainer has level 100 Pokemon. Now I can already hear you asking, would I ever try this again in a different game? No!